What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 13 of Dynasty Decisions, our second of the weekend. We talked about a 3-day Dynasty Decisions. We're going to try and fit it into 2. This one might be a bit longer than you guys are used to, but we'll see how it goes. We got, I believe, 12 or 13 teams that we're covering in this episode. As always, guys, you guys show so much support for this series. Liking, comment, subscribing on the video because of this series. You guys reach out to us all the time and tell us how much you love it. So we definitely appreciate that. Danny, how you doing today?
Doing well. And yeah, y'all keep showing this support. We'll keep dropping these things out for you. Again, Dynasty Decisions. All of you have been showing immense support in our DMs, on the Twitter, on the YouTube, on the Discord. So we're going to keep dropping it for you guys. It's fun for us. We look at your teams, we look at your deals, and we kind of just go off the cuff, give you our initial reaction thoughts to what we think you guys, whether you fucked up, whether you made a good move, and help you guys build towards the ultimate goal of winning a championship. So yeah, I'm pumped up. But before we get into that first team, we're going to hit the intro. Okay, so let's start off with the first team. You guys can see the picture on the screen from MikeyB. He's got his team. He's got a couple trades he's made, and he's got his question would be his overall or our overall thoughts on his current roster and if we would change anything. So you guys can see the deal. So he received Amari Cooper, Darnell Mooney, and a 2022 third for Elijah Moore, a 2022 first, a 2023 second, and a Monra. So right off the bat, if we're analyzing this, this is clearly a win now versus rebuilding type of move. And what are your initial thoughts? Because the way I kind of break this down would most likely be Mooney for the second and a Monra, and then Amari in the third for Elijah in the 1. So that's kind of how I have it in my head.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would break it down. When you look at the best players in this deal, to me, it's clearly Amari Cooper's the best player in this deal. If you're trying to win now, based on your current team, you definitely are. You have Saquon Barkley, you have Nick Chubb on your team, you got Najee Harris, you Justin Jefferson. You have a very good team. So win now move, getting Amari Cooper. Yeah, I absolutely love that. He's a guy that's going to be, a borderline top 10 receiver for you this year, if not top 5 at his absolute ceiling. So he's a guy that I really like this year, and I think you paid appropriate value for him. As much as we love Elijah Moore, and giving up first round picks always hurts when you're a contender, but most likely we're assuming this is a late first rounder. Even if it's a mid first rounder and you suffer a bunch of injuries, I still think I would take the Amari Cooper side of this deal.
Yeah, 100%. Again, as a contender, Amari Cooper should give you, at minimum, in my opinion, if he's healthy, top 12 type of numbers. Again, that's going to be a high-powered offense. He is that number 1 on the offense still, even though as much as I love CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper is almost a lock, in my opinion, if he plays 17 games, to lead that team in targets, lead that team in receptions. So I do think he's going to supplant wide receiver 1-2 type of numbers for your team. And as a contender, that's worth a lot more than the young package. As much as I love Elijah Moore, as much as I love those future picks, if I'm a contender, I do want Amari here. And the second deal he has here, he ended up getting the 106 straight up for Terry McLaurin. And with the 106, Justin Fields actually fell to him. So overall, again, I absolutely love this move. Again, you acquired a win now receiver. You shipped one out and clearly filled a huge need at that quarterback 3. Your QB3 before that was Drew Lock. Now you have Justin Fields. That young quarterback trio that you currently have is absolutely dynamic. So what are your thoughts on this deal as well?
Yeah, you knocked this one out of the park. Normally, Justin Fields is like a 104, 105 pick. You got him at 106. I would say overall, Terry McLaurin for the 106 is appropriate value, right? You're probably at that point looking at Zach Wilson or Devontae Smith, maybe Jamar Chase, but probably not. Most leagues, he's usually off the board before then. So if you're looking at, Zach Wilson, Devontae Smith, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, then I think that's probably about appropriate value for Terry McLaurin. And I think Terry McLaurin could go absolutely berserk this year. And even if he does, I still think you won this trade, because Justin Fields, a young quarterback who a team that traded up 2 first-round picks to get him, is going to have a big leash. He's going to be a big-time rushing threat once he eventually does get on the field, which I think is sooner rather than later. And like Danny said, you had a huge hole at your QB3 slot, and you have Justin Fields, Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence now as your top 3 quarterbacks.
Yep, absolutely. And his follow-up question to that is, should I keep all 3 quarterbacks for the long haul or try to move one down the road? And the one that I kind of see here, if you're willing to gauge value, would be Trevor Lawrence. if you can see, like, if somebody's willing to overpay for Trevor Lawrence, if somebody's willing to say, I'll give you Ryan Tannehill, and someone might offer you like Ryan Tannehill and 2 firsts for Trevor Lawrence. Honestly, given the fact that people value youth, people look at Trevor Lawrence as that next chosen one. Maybe some people have honestly said they view him as the next best quarterback behind Patrick Mahomes for the next 15 years. I wouldn't go that far. He's currently a first-round startup pick. If you can get first-round startup value for Trevor Lawrence right now, again, we're mentioning a deal like Ryan Tannehill and 2 firsts. That's something I would look into. Aside from that quarterback trio, talk about appreciating assets, because all those guys are 24 or younger, all of them on ascending offenses, all of them in general should be some of the best quarterbacks in the league for the next foreseeable future.
Right. And I would want a way, because you don't have a first next year and you only have 1 first in 2023. I would want a way to recoup some value in my running back core, because you do have some guys that could fall off in value in the next couple of years, even though you have Najee Harris, Nick Chubb. He's a running back. He gets a big workload on the ground. He could eventually break down in 2 to 3 years. And you have, not really a succession plan for him. So overall, this team should be ready to win right now. And if, like Danny said, if Trevor Lawrence, somebody's willing to give you a win now quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, or even maybe a second tier quarterback, maybe somebody's willing to give you a Dak Prescott for Trevor Lawrence. Like, some teams might be willing to do that if they really value that guy. But at the point I'm at right now with your team, you have such value at the quarterback position that I would just sit pat, because at the very least, these guys are going to hold value. And at the high end, like, Trevor Lawrence could turn into the 101, 102 overall.
Yeah. And it's funny because seeing this team, it kind of reminds me how of my one quarterback situation in our home league, where I had Kyler and Dak, and I ended up trading up for the 104 and got that QB3. Ended up being Justin Fields. So now going into the future, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Justin Fields, it kind of reminds me of that situation where it's always nice having those top plethora of options at the quarterback position, because you always know that in terms of appreciating assets, the quarterbacks, especially the elite ones, are always going to keep continuing gaining value. So overall, yeah, look at a one now quarterback. Maybe somebody's willing to give you a Dak Prescott. Aside from that, if somebody is willing to give Ryan Tannehill and 2 firsts, let's say, I would probably look into that as well. So I think you're in a very good position to win. You got a very good win now team with some youth, in particular at the wide receiver position. So yeah, you're set up very well. So good job.
Yep. We can move on to Johnny Tightlips' team, and I'll let you go over his.
For sure. So you guys can see that team on the screen right now. Johnny Tightlips. Quarterbacks, he's got Mahomes, Tannehill, Tua, and Baker. Running backs, Saquon, CMC, Mike Davis, Chase Edmonds, and some others there you guys can see. Wide receiver, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, OBJ in particular. Tight ends, Robert Tonyan, O.J. Howard, and Cole Kmet. He's got all his 2021 rookie picks. He's got the 12th overall pick, so I'm assuming that means he won the championship. 2022 first, and all future picks. It's a 2 quarterback league, so not a super flex. He says that in particular, not a super flex, 2 quarterbacks, which right off the bat, if you guys don't know what that means, you have to start 2 quarterbacks every single week. You can't just, if a quarterback gets hurt, sub in a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end in the super flex spot. No, you have to start 2 quarterbacks every single week. And he mentions here there's 2 flexes, 3 wide receivers. You guys see the rest there. He just won the championship, so I alluded to that. He's going to win it. He wants to try to win it again. Should I sell early on anyone? We'll probably tank if I win this year. Baker at 112 for Watson, Waddle, or Bateman at 112. So right off the bat, should I sell early on anyone? Looking at the team right now, I mean, this team is ready to win now. Like,
yeah.
You guys can see that. Yeah,
and he says, should I sell early on anybody? Like, no, I would not. But that trade that you talked about at the bottom, if somebody is willing to give you Deshaun Watson for Baker in the 112, I'm smashing that yesterday. Like, in a 2 quarterback league, Deshaun Watson will have top 5 overall value as soon as his legal situation is figured out. And you don't even need him this year to win now, because you still have Tua behind Mahomes and Tannehill, who are both of my top 6 overall redraft quarterbacks. So if somebody's willing to accept that deal, I would absolutely make that deal. The guy I'd actually be looking to shop, if somebody doesn't want to accept that, is I would try and move Tua for a tight end.
Yeah, that would be good too. Like, if you can move Tua, and heck, could you move Tua in a pick for like
Pitts?
Darren Waller? Pitts would be the dream.
You have 2 firsts next year. Could you move Tua on a first round pick for Pitts, you think? In a 2 quarterback league.
I would try it. Like, but if you trade Tua, like, you can't trade Baker at that point.
No.
But like, if you can trade Tua and a first and get Kyle Pitts, or as I mentioned, something more realistic would probably be a Darren Waller. in your current situation, I wouldn't mind getting a Darren Waller to really add to this team. Getting a Darren Waller at tight end, getting that difference maker would really take this team over the top. I mean, you should have 2 top 5 running backs if Saquon's healthy to begin the year.
Be top 5 receivers for sure too.
Yeah, Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, OBJ should also be really good contributors. I mean, this is a very good win now team. So again, if that guy's willing to make the deal for Watson, I'd be fine doing that, considering that Tua can still be your quarterback 3 if Watson doesn't play for the first 8, 9, 10 weeks, even the full season. And if he doesn't do that, then yeah, I would look Tua in a first, try to get one of those tight ends being Waller or Pitts if somebody were willing to do that.
Right. But one thing I would suggest is that when you're in a 2 quarterback league and you have 4 quarterbacks, I'm kind of okay just holding 4 quarterbacks.
I'm fine with that too, honestly.
Because you're never going to have to worry about it, right? Like if you have 4 quarterbacks, that means somebody in your league, probably multiple people in your league, have 2 or 3, and their third quarterback is like Ryan Fitzpatrick or something like that. So you're in a situation where you're going to have a lot of value to be had if you want to make future moves. Because like if you look at his receiving core, he doesn't have a lot of exciting young players right now. Like Van Jefferson's really the only youth in his receiving core. And obviously if you go 112, and we'll address that question right now, Waddle or Bateman at 112, I think we disagree on this one, don't we?
They're similar tier for me. I've warmed up a lot more on Bateman's situation. They're like, I'm probably like, say if I'm in 10 drafts, I'll probably make it like 6'4" Waddle, 5'5", something like that. Like it's genuinely that close to me right now. Like hitting them 2 and fucking Elijah Moore, literally like I would hate trying to make that decision in a dynasty draft right now.
Yeah, and I made the decision. In one of my leagues, I had I think it was the 111, and I took Bateman over Waddle and Elijah Moore. So I would
thoughts?
No, it was in Get Faded. So I took Bateman over Waddle and Elijah Moore, and I think it's Bateman. It's really not that close for me in terms of a tier break. I think I have Bateman up with Devontae Smith, so I have those guys up in the next tier below the top tier with Travis Etienne or with Javonte Williams and Zach Wilson and stuff like that. That's where I value Bateman. So he is a guy that I would absolutely take at 112. He would really inject a lot of youth into your receiving core and some future ceiling that you could use. Obviously, because outside of AJ Brown, you don't really have a lot of young guys in your receiving core. Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams, both like in their primes, but none of them are like ascending players really. So Bateman would be the guy I would go with at 112 for sure.
Yep, for sure. So anything else you want to add to this team, or should we move on to the next? All right, perfect. We got Frankie Avaliz. You guys can see that on the screen. Current quarterbacks he's got Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, and the boy Jacob Eason. Yep. Running backs Swift, Penny, and Guy, so clearly just Swift and fodder. Wide receivers, Metcalf, Lamb, Higgins, Judy. So definitely not fodder there. Tight end, you got, I think that's either Harrison or Hunter Bryant.
Hi, Harrison.
His picks, he's still got the 105, so he hasn't had his rookie draft yet. 2022 first. So right off the bat, great job there. And then you guys can see the rest of the picks. So he's got his trades noted here. He gave up Derrick Henry for DeAndre Swift and CeeDee Lamb. Oh wow, my!
That's insane.
He made that right before his 2020 rookie draft, man. What a
yeah, that like at the time that was probably a risky trade, right? Before the 2020 rookie draft, so you eventually got, I guess, probably like a top, 2 top 6 rookie picks for Derrick Henry, and to turn it into those 2 guys, man, like that's great value. Obviously, I hope he didn't pass on Cam Akers for DeAndre Swift, but probably did. But either way, that is phenomenal value. If nothing else, try doing that now, right? Like try selling Derrick Henry for DeAndre Swift at CeeDee Lamb now.
Try selling Derrick Henry for DeAndre Swift straight up.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. So I definitely think you won that trade in terms of long-term outlook. You obviously have a very young team as well between Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Swift, DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb. Like you have a very young team, so that definitely fits the bill of what you were trying to do. I'm assuming you sold Derrick Henry after, maybe you won a championship or you got bounced in the playoffs and you realized you needed to rebuild this team. You recouped 5 2022 first and you got 2 absolutely stud young pieces. So definitely really like that trade for you.
Yeah, let's look at the next one too, because as much as I love the 102, also it's a 1 quarterback league. Okay, so as much as I love the 102, you're talking about Jamar Chase, you're talking about Najee Harris, getting a Devonta Smith in a first, basically for either of those guys, I'm taking that on the fly and running with it.
Yeah, so or Javonte Williams, maybe even Etienne is there at 105 too.
Yeah, so I think you absolutely killed both of those first 2 deals. Third deal, it's a little bit more chalkier. I mean, in a one quarterback league, it makes a lot more sense. If it was a super flex, I'd be like, 202, you could probably still get like a Micah Carter, Mac Jones type. But in a one quarterback league, you're probably more so looking at like
Rondale Moore, maybe Terrace Marshall,
maybe 207 and OBJ. That's probably fair value for the 2022 one, especially as a contender. So I'm fine with that move. Julio Jones trade up for the first. I mean,
easy trade. In your situation, easy trade to make, right? Like Julio Jones, depreciating asset, going to be good for the next year, probably too. But you got an extra first out of it, and you weren't going to use him anyway. So yeah, great deal for you.
I'll let you read the next deal that he got.
Oh Jesus. So made at the beginning of last season to an RB needy contender. He traded away Mark Ingram, a 2022 second and a 2022 third for a 2022 first. So Mark Ingram isn't worth shit. Like he's not worth anything. So you basically traded a second and a third to get into the first round next year.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
The one thing I will say on the 102 deal, looking at his team, I think I might have kept the 102 because your tight end is Harrison Bryant. And that 102 might have been Kyle Pitts.
To be fair, though, now he owns the 2022 draft, and he wasn't going to really do much anyways with his RB depth behind Swift.
Right, so but Pitts isn't a guy that I'm drafting for this year. Pitts is 21 years old.
That's fair, but like, okay, would you rather Devonta Smith in a first or Pitts right now in his situation?
I think Pitts.
Rebuilding. Or sorry, Javonte Williams in a first.
I still think Pitts.
It's close. Okay.
If you could he says, who should I take it to 105? If Kyle Pitts is somehow there, then you made out like a bank robber. I would actually consider moving up for Pitts. If it's like the 103 and Pitts hasn't gone yet, I would consider moving up. I don't know what it would take necessarily, but if you can move up with the 105 and T Higgins maybe and get up to the Kyle Pitts, I think that's a trade I would potentially make, or even Jerry Jeudy or something less than that.
105 and Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, if you do that, then you're stealing them. But if you could find a way to get Kyle Pitts on this team, I think you'd be in a really good shape.
Yep, absolutely. So you guys can see the purple.
But real quick, if he's not there at 105, I would probably take Travis Etienne or Javonte Williams. And then if both of those guys aren't there, I would take Devontae Smith.
Yep. League change. We are switching to Superflex in the 2022 season, adding this position. This is why I loaded. Oh,
that's beautiful because you have Lamar and freaking Kyler Murray, and you're switching to a Superflex once your team is ready to win. So yeah, you're in phenomenal shape right now.
So overall, like that makes his trades with the rookie picks look even better because now you got fucking 105 and a future first for the 102, and the 105 and a Superflex is worth a lot more than a 105 in a one quarterback league. So
right,
if that's the case, like. Dude, what if like Trevor Lawrence or Trey Lance fell to the 105 because people are looking to win now in 2021?
Oh, okay. So wait, is the 105 this year?
105 is this year.
Okay, so I mean, not necessarily, but like someone would probably pick Trevor Lawrence before the 105 because they're going to a Superflex next year.
But that's what I mean. What if, say, hypothetically, like you had a couple people in there that are like, maybe I want to win some games in 2021. It's not a super flex in 2021. So they offer the running back, they offer the wide receiver, they offer the tight end. And one of Lawrence or Lance in particular fall to the 105.
Yeah, you could definitely do something like that. Plus, considering you're not going to compete this year, like either of those guys are a value at the 105. And I'm assuming because it's the top end of the draft, there's probably 2 or 3 other teams that aren't looking to compete this year that might also go that route. And you might get Kyle Pitts at 105.
Yep, absolutely. So I really like that. You got a very good situation there. We kind of took away those first 2 questions. The third question is, what should I do with those 2022 picks? Honestly, in your situation, this is a 2022 contender. You hold those picks until the rookie draft when people want to overpay for them. And maybe at the time of the rookie draft, let's just say hypothetically, Jamar Chase has a slightly, okay, people aren't going to sell low on Jamar Chase, but Javonte Williams, let's say. You have the 108 on the clock, and the guy, I don't know, maybe Javonte Williams had a slowish rookie year, and you flip the 108 straight up for Javonte Williams next year. That's something that I would probably look into.
Yeah.
Guys like that, like you have 5 2022 first.
I'd probably be looking to spend 3 or 4 of those on actual picks and then look to trade 1 or 2 of them, given the value of those. Especially like if Breece Hall comes out and is like Saquon Barkley level this year, you might be able to just sell like a freaking farm for him in the rookie draft or something like that. Yep,
absolutely. And when can I truly compete? I mentioned it. But 2022 is your team. So great job there, Frankie. We can move on to the next team. We still got a good amount to go. And so you guys can see Lumber on the screen right now. He's got the roster: Herbert, Wilson, Darnold in particular, running backs: Akers, Swift, Sanders. wide receivers, McLaurin, Chenault, Devonta, Will Fuller, etc. And at tight end, Fant, Cole Kmet. And his questions, you guys, it's kind of cut off there, but I'll just read them out for you guys. First question, I know I'm lacking at wide receiver. What should I be looking to do to improve my wide receiver room? So let's take a look. I mean, you got a solid top 4, but yeah, aside from that, the depth is probably a little off.
I don't know if I'm making any moves in particular, though.
Yeah.
I think you got to see what happens with Devontae Smith, with Will Fuller, and with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm willing to bet one of those guys becomes a pretty solid option for you. And then Laviska Shenault as well. I think you got to see what you have. It doesn't look like you're going to be able to compete this year anyway. So I would just imagine, just see what you got in your young guys and then look to address that later.
Yep. No, I'm of agreement there. I think I'm just outside the top 4 teams for this year. Could I try and package Fuller and Dillon for a wide receiver 3? Who are names I should target? When you're talking about Fuller and Dillon, first of all, we mentioned we don't think you can really fully compete this year. So if you're packaging Fuller and Dillon, try to look for a younger receiver. If you can get Jerry Jeudy for that type of cost, I'd probably do something like that. That's kind of what I'd look at.
I don't think I would, man. I'm higher on Will Fuller than you are.
That's fair.
I personally would just hold pat because I don't think anybody's going to get overly excited about either of those players to the point that they're going to give you a T. Higgins or a Brandon Ayuk.
I was just about to say, what about Brandon Ayuk?
If you could get Brandon Ayuk, yes, I would do that, but I don't think you'll be able to get him with that power.
All right. Question 3, overall thoughts on the squad. Think you guys think I should do. This is a 2022, 2023 type of contender for me personally.
A 10-teamer too. So you'd assume a lot of the teams are a lot better than his.
The teams the players that I would say would sell, I would sell off. First of all, Miles Sanders, AJ Dillon, see what you can kind of get from them. There's a little bit of hype around the industry on both of them. And I think AJ Dillon's fine, but if somebody's willing to give you an overpay for him because they say, oh, Aaron Jones, this is going to be a split backfield, yada, 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 maybe you can farm some out of somebody. Wide receivers, I mean,
I'd sell Jared Goff too if you can.
Jared Goff is
if you wait, I would say the best time to sell Jared Goff would be wait before the season. If someone tears their ACL in preseason and they need a quarterback to get them through the season as their QB2 or QB3 or something like that, see if you can get a first for Jared Goff because you might be able to if someone suffered an injury.
Yep, and then out wide receiver, maybe if somebody's willing, Fuller's the type of guy, if he's balling out during the season, you could probably gauge the value on him because you have a younger team.
Right. Did he say what picks he has by any chance?
He didn't mention them.
Okay, so I'm just going to assume he has all of his picks for the next couple of years. So if you're going forward, just try and hit on your draft picks, maybe secure a stud receiver if you can. You should have, between the 4 or 5 receivers that you have behind Terry McLaurin, you should have 2 or 3 of them that work out to be solid fantasy options for you. And then your running backs are good. Your top 2 guys, you have 2 young tight ends that I like. And your QBs are all pretty decent as well. Darnold and Goff could be guys that you consider shopping just because they have pretty high value right now. But outside of that, I think you're in decent shape to compete in a couple of years.
Absolutely. So we can get on to the next team, I think, unless you have any closing thoughts.
No, that's good.
All right. Daryl Donut, 12 team, 1 quarterback league, and he's adding a super flex in the 2023 season. So remember that when we're doing our analysis. This is a half PPR league. So you can read off the team real quick.
Yeah. So again, remember he's adding a super flex in 2 years. He's got Dak Prescott, Trey Lance, and Kirk Cousins. And then Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's got, his 3 running backs to start: Saquon Barkley, Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins. That's phenomenal. Top 3 receivers: Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley. Also phenomenal. Some young guys there as well. Darren Waller's his tight end. Irv Smith, Adam Troutman, some sleeper guys that he has. He looks like he has all of his picks. Basically what he's saying is he likes his team, and I like your team as well. It's very good. And he says he's worried about J.K. Dobbins, though. And again, it's going to be a divisive topic, right? People are not going to buy in on J.K. Dobbins. People are going to be like, I don't trust the volume. Lamar Jackson's going to be, stealing touches away from him. So he said, I'm thinking about swapping him for CeeDee Lamb. Should I do it? And if you can pull off that trade, I probably would do it because as much as I love J.K. Dobbins, there's definitely a chance I could be wrong, right? I could definitely be wrong about J.K. Dobbins, and I think I'm far less likely to be wrong about CeeDee Lamb being a stud option than I am about J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins is one of the more boomer bust running backs that you can have in fantasy, and if somebody's willing to give up CeeDee Lamb for him, I would do it. But the problem with selling J.K. Dobbins is that a lot of people are going to be skeptical about him, and you might not get exactly what you're looking for him.
The thing that I have, though, is you guys know how much I love CeeDee Lamb. I would try to get a little bit of RB tax on top of this personally, because people every year, as much as I love these elite wide receivers, right now, who's going ahead in a startup? AJ Brown or Najee Harris?
Najee Harris is going ahead.
J.K. Dobbins or CeeDee Lamb?
J.K. Dobbins.
So if you're talking about overall value, people value the RB scarcity in a startup, but as soon as the startup's done, it's just kind of over with. No, I don't believe in that. So if I have J.K. Dobbins and a person's trying to acquire J.K. Dobbins, they're most likely less than optimal at the running back position. So I love CeeDee Lamb. That is the basis of the offer. I think he's going to end up being a fringe top 5 overall dynasty wide receiver. But because he's a wide receiver and because you're giving up a running back, try to get some RB tax on that. That's the only kind of bugaboo I would have in terms of a straight up swap. I think even if it's J.K. Dobbins for CeeDee Lamb in like 2 seconds, I would do something like that.
Right.
So overall, like you're talking about J.K. Dobbins currently going at the the early 3rd round area. CeeDee Lamb's kind of going at the back end 3rd, early 4th. So if you can capitalize on that little bit of value, try to get as much as you can.
Right. And the one thing I would suggest also is if you're worried about J.K. Dobbins, I encourage you to remind yourself that J.K. Dobbins is your 3rd running back. And he's also probably like the 7th best option on your team in terms of this year value for what he's going to provide you, because Darren Waller is going to help carry your team. Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, they're going to help carry your team, probably more than J.K. Dobbins. Saquon Barkley and Antonio Gibson, they're going to help carry your team. Dak Prescott in a 1 quarterback league for now is going to help carry your team. So J.K. Dobbins is a flex option for you. So if you're worried about him, like, I don't know if he can turn into a top 8 running back, he doesn't need to be that this year for you to win the championship.
Yep, absolutely. So we can get on to the next team unless you have anything else to say.
Nope, that's probably good.
All right. Tim Brennan's team, 10-team Superflex Standard League. So non-PPR or
it's a standard league. Yeah. So Tim, quick shout out to Tim Brennan. He's actually a minor league pitcher in the Texas Rangers organization. So, I mean, I saw the blue check mark in my DMs. Cool, yeah. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But he said he's been binging the channel on his time off. I guess he's rehabbing an injury. So quick shout out to him. He sends us his team, 10-team Superflex Standard. You guys can see the team there. He's got Trey Lance, Daniel Jones, top 2 quarterbacks, Gibson, Dobbins, Sanders, ETN as his top guys at running back. AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, DJ Chark, and some others. Kyle Pitts is his tight end with Dallas Goedert there. It looks like he has all of his picks, and he also has a plethora of 2023 firsts. He's got 4 of them by the looks of it. And he made a number of trades that he wants our thoughts on. And honestly, I think he won every single one of these. So we're going to start with the first one. And this one is not close. As much as I love both of these players, he got Antonio Gibson, straight up for Brandon Ayuk. And I love Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is in my top 20 dynasty wide receivers. There is not a fucking chance I would trade Antonio Gibson away for Brandon Ayuk.
I don't know how you pulled this off. I mean, we're talking about quite literally a 3-4 round startup discrepancy right now between those players. Like, as much as I love Brandon Ayuk, like, you have to be looking at Brandon Ayuk plus at least a first and a second for Gibson. I would say that's probably appropriate value. So overall, when I'm looking at this deal, you profited a first and a second.
Yeah, exactly. And that one's a quick one for us. We don't even need to go into it too much. But the next deal is a little bit more of a closer deal, but I still think you won this one. Yeah. You traded away Jonathan Taylor. And again, I would consider your team a win now team. So in that situation, I don't know if I'd be willing to trade away someone like Jonathan Taylor, but I can understand why you did it, because the value you got in return was a 2021 first, which ended up being Travis Etienne, I guess, after his rookie draft. And he got a 2022 first, which it looks like he didn't have one prior to that. So, and it's not his, and he has a very good team. So that's another profitable move that you made. And you got another 2023 first to go along with the other ones that you had. And you got, I think it's Marquise Brown, who you ended up using in a later trade that we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love what you did here. And in general, as much as I love Jonathan Taylor, you're talking about ETN and 2 first. Again, ETN is a guy I think at minimum is going to be an RB2, possibly an RB1 for the foreseeable future. And he has that decided role. I mean, Corey compared him to Aaron Jones. I think you're looking at an Aaron Jones level type of player in that system, especially working with that quarterback. So I absolutely love Travis Etienne plus those 2 first. I think you made out really well there. Let's go on to the next deal, though. And wow, great job. Like AJ Brown, at minimum, is a top 4 or 5 dynasty wide receiver. And I think that some people can honestly make the case for him being 1. Like, honestly, that's how talented of a player he is. That is how efficient of a player he is. So if you're looking at this on face value, let's say OBJ is probably worth that 2022 second at this point.
Yeah, I'd probably say about that, yeah.
Yeah, so basically we're looking at, I'm assuming that's Marquise Brown. So Galladay, Marquise Brown in the first for AJ Brown.
Yeah, that's not close. Like, as much as Golladay, I believe he can be like a wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2 this year, and a 2022 first going to recoup value a lot. Like, we're talking about AJ Brown here, man. Like, AJ Brown is worth all that and a bag of chips, man. Like, he's a phenomenal dynasty asset to have, because this guy has legitimate Julio Jones, Antonio Brown level of dominance in his future, because that's how good of it. Like, I owned AJ Brown last year. I had him win me a championship as a big part of that. And 8 times a year, this guy's going to make an absolutely mind-boggling play that wins you a week.
Yeah, absolutely. So great deal there. And then finally,
again, this one isn't. This is probably the most one-sided of all of them, to be honest, because CeeDee Lamb versus Josh Jacobs straight up is probably like closer than the startup value difference would indicate, or farther away than the startup value difference would indicate, because CeeDee Lamb to me is a far safer asset than Josh Jacobs.
Absolutely.
Like, far safer, because there's a world where Josh Jacobs doesn't wash out of the league necessarily, but there's a world where after his rookie contract, he's kind of useless for fantasy.
Yeah, like as much as I love Josh Jacobs, realistically here, he's gotten all the volume that we've looked for. Like, he's never going to be a guy who gets 60, 70 plus targets. He's not going to be one of the more efficient runners in the league in general. And he's in a situation now where his whole offensive line basically just said, peace out, honestly. So I think Jacobs is like a fine RB2, 3 type, like kind of on that fringe RB20 area. But CeeDee Lamb, talk about appreciating assets. If somebody doesn't already have him ranked as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, I currently have him at about 11, 10, or no, he's my 10. I think by the end of this year, he's going to firmly entrench himself in that, if not tier 1, absolute tier 2 wide receiver in dynasty, maybe after the Jefferson, AJ Brown deal. Honestly, I think CeeDee Lamb can enter that tier this year in that offense. So getting that for Josh Jacobs in the second, I mean, you absolutely made out like a robber in this deal. Great job. And overall, like adding to this, his questions being thoughts on the trades, we gave those thoughts. Overall thoughts on the roster, I mean, this team
is phenomenal. Like
it's a team of appreciating assets, aside from Big Ben.
Yeah, and really, he says, I know I'm weak at quarterback, especially for a super flex. He's currently starting Daniel Jones, and his third quarterback is Big Ben. You can get by this year. That's my basically my thoughts on it. With those two guys as your QB 2 and 3, you can get by this year. You have 4 or 5 ones in 2023, and you have 1 in 2022. You have an ability to address the quarterback position then. I would not force it now. If you see an opportunity, like let's say this year, Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence or one of these younger guys, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Let's say it's like week 8. Trey Lance hasn't started a game yet. He still hasn't gotten on the field. You might be able to ship 1 or 2 of those firsts, or 1 first plus a piece, and get Trey Lance before he sees the field, before everybody will. Oh, does he have Trey Lance already? Okay, sorry, not Trey Lance. Let's say Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or Trevor Lawrence are at a sell low point during the season. You might be able to go out and acquire one of those guys for a 2023 first and a piece or something like that.
He said he doesn't want to deal the 2023 first.
I see that. But at that point, it's worth it to do that. I know 2023 firsts are gold, like he says, because of the Bijan Robinson class and because of like all these guys that are supposed to be. DJ Uwangale, I think, is going to be in that class as well. That class is supposed to be very good, but you're probably going to need a quarterback in 2022 because, in my opinion, Daniel Jones might be in a situation next year where he's not a starting quarterback.
Well, let's say right now, what would you rather have, like Dallas Goedert in the first or Zach Wilson in a second?
I'd rather have Zach Wilson in a second.
What if you take the second off? Still Zach Wilson, right?
I'd rather have Zach Wilson easily.
Yeah, so try to make a move like that. Like you have Kyle Pitts. As much as I love Dallas Goedert, you do have Kyle Pitts. You do have Irv Smith. He's an expendable piece. If you're able to flip Goddard in the first and get Zach Wilson to add to this team, talk about contender. Talk about
you can even throw Juju into that deal, and I would still do it.
Yeah, honestly. So great job there. But if you don't want to,
your team's in a great spot. You should be able to compete this year. You should be able to compete in 2022. You should be able to compete in 2023, and then by then you're gonna have a dynasty.
Yeah, like 2023, you mentioned you're trading them like gold. If you don't want to move any of those picks, Goddard would be the piece plus a 2022 first to get that quarterback to really steady this team out. So overall, great job here. And your league within the next few years is going to be regretting everything that they've ever done to bolster your team.
Yeah, because all those trades, like you won every single one.
Yeah. So we can get on to the next team unless you have any closing thoughts.
Nope, we're good.
All right, we got Scott's team, so you guys can see the team on the screen. You can read it off, Corey.
Yeah, he's got a different I guess, scoring format or ways that you can start players. Cause I guess you only have to start a minimum of, you guys can see them on the screen. You can only start one quarterback, obviously. You can start between 1 and 3 running backs, 3 and 5 wide receivers, 1 and 2 tight ends. It doesn't look like he has a whole lot of, actually, never mind. He has 2 2022 firsts. So he has some draft capital in the coming years. It doesn't look like he's listing his 2023 picks. Maybe you can't trade them yet in his league format, but it looks like he doesn't have any real picks in 2021. I guess they haven't had their rookie draft yet. He said he took over this as an orphan team, and he's a first-year Dynasty player, but he's played redraft for a number of years. He's asking, how can he make this team better? He started shopping Kamara, Woods, and Golladay for some younger pieces because it looks like, and I would probably agree with him, that he probably can't compete quite yet. Just because, I mean, you don't really have that many high-end receivers. You would need a lot to break right. Golladay would need to be the next Diggs. Chenault would need to come out and be a phenomenal piece. Troutman would have to hit big. Like, you need a lot to go right for you to be able to compete this year. So I agree. Go and maybe punt to 2022. You have 2 firsts next year. Try and maybe move a piece like Alvin Kamara, Robert Woods. And he also asks, what are our thoughts on this trade? He said he traded a 2022 second for Adam Troutman.
It's a little too expensive for me personally.
I think that's about appropriate value. It's close. You'd have to believe, if you believe in Troutman, I think that's probably appropriate value. I don't think you overpaid for him.
That's probably like at that cost, I'd probably more so look at like a Cole Kmet or Smith, but like Troutman's fine if he does hit again. I saw he was one of my favorite tight ends in the class last year. I just don't necessarily believe in the situation like some do with the New Orleans Saints. I think this is going to be a very funnel team to Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. I mean, we've seen even Jameis Winston in the past when he has kind of 2 dynamite players in the receiving game, he kind of just force feeds them. I mean, we've seen that with Mike Evans. We saw that with Chris Godwin in 2019. You're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. You can confirm that. So I don't necessarily believe in the hype of the ancillary pieces in this offense as some want to make it seem like, especially on Twitter. But I mean, if he does hit, the 2022 second for him is probably about fair value. In general, though, I'm looking at this team. I would agree with your thesis here, or your kind of overall underlying goal here of trading those older assets, Woods, Golladay. Even like I like Sutton, but even if you can get really good value for Sutton, Calvin Kamara, this is a team that I view that if you can rebuild and get young pieces, you're looking at 2022, 2023 as your main peak years.
Yeah. And he asks also, 3rd and 4th round is going to be in August, I guess, of his rookie draft. So I guess they already had their 1st and 2nd round. It makes sense. They has Najee Harris on his roster, but
and Lawrence.
Yeah, and it looks like you can trade or you can pick veterans as well. So that 302 is probably a little bit more valuable if you could pick veterans in it. Maybe you get a high-end veteran that's available, or you can get, Nico Collins or something like that at the 302. I would just look to add best player available with that pick.
I'd like to know who's available, but
yeah, I'd like to know who's available veteran-wise, but I'd imagine the best options are probably still the young players. If it's veterans, because you're probably looking at guys like Philip Lindsay or like Todd Gurley or something like that. And then at that point, that's what you use like 4th round picks on. At the 302, you should be able to get a solid player at that point to go with. And I think one piece that I would guess might be available is if Mac Jones is there. I know it's a 1 quarterback league, but behind Trevor Lawrence, you don't really have anything. So if Mac Jones is there at that 302, I would consider that. I don't know if he's available or not, but he might be in a 1 quarterback league.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. So overall, again, like maybe Mac Jones at that 302. Aside from that, any other underlying thoughts that you have on this team, or should we move on?
Just I would punt this year. Probably go and see if you can get some picks, some young pieces for Alvin Kamara, and go out and try and compete 2022, 2023.
Yep, absolutely. So we got Peter's team now. It's a full point PPR super flex. His starters would be a 1 quarterback in a super flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight end league, and 1 flex. So you can read off the team, and then we can get into the trades afterwards.
Yeah, so if we're looking at Peter's team here, and it looks like he's got a pretty, decent situation, a real win now type of team. If you look at this, he's got Tom Brady. Obviously, that's like the definition of a win now asset. He's got a bunch of running backs that are in their primes currently, wide receivers in their primes. Gronkowski's one of his tight ends, and he's got some draft picks this year. I guess they haven't had their rookie draft yet. So looking over his team, did he ask about the rookie drafts? Yes, he did. Okay, so Peter actually gave me a lot of information. So looking at his league in general, I guess they had an expansion draft to go from 8 teams to 10 teams. He lost Tua Tagovailoa in this expansion draft, and he actually said that as a general philosophy, his league undervalues quarterbacks. He said he got Joe Burrow at the 105 last year in a Superflex league, and Tua at the 207, and somebody got Herbert at the 301. to another team. So he's wondering with that 103, should he go after Kyle Pitts? Because, I mean, he's got Gronkowski and Kmet as his top 2 tight ends, and it is a 2 tight end league. So, I mean, he's got to start 2 tight ends, and he's got currently Kmet and Gronkowski as his starters. And should he hope that Zach Wilson or Mac Jones fall to 205, knowing that Herbert and Tua fell last year? I would say absolutely. Kyle Pitts is that 103, and I'm not even thinking twice about it, if he's even there, to be honest, because he might not be in a 2 tight end league.
The way I look at it, like in a 2 tight end league, if Kyle Pitts is there, he is the slam pick. And the way I kind of look at it is, like if your league's undervaluing quarterbacks, like
I think Mac Jones should be there at 205 if they are.
I think Zach Wilson might be there, man. He's talking about freaking Tua Tagovailoa was there at the 207. Heck, what if Justin Fields was there?
Yeah, I don't think that would happen, but if you can get either of those, what most people would consider the QB 4 and 5 of this class, if either of them are there at 205 or 207, I would pick both of them. Dude. If Zach Wilson is there at 205 and Mac Jones is there at 207, I would pick both of them. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that is phenomenal. And let's look at the trades real quick. So he received Jerry Jeudy in the 102 for Rodgers, Hawkinson, the 208 and the 307. So if we're looking at it right there, Rodgers and Hawkinson, does that 208 and 307 make up the value of Jeudy and 102? Because I would say Jeudy and 102 is probably a little bit more valuable than Rodgers and Hawkinson. I would say that's probably about a fair deal overall. What are your thoughts?
I would think that's a fair deal, especially considering it looks like your team is more of a win now team, and you need to find ways to increase your longevity, increase your flexibility, and acquiring a guy like Jerry Jeudy and the 102 to deal Aaron Rodgers and TJ Hawkinson, while it's not ideal in a 2 tight end league to deal away TJ Hawkinson, I think you set yourself up enough to the point that you're going to get Kyle Pitts probably. So I would imagine that this deal probably works out for you. So I would take the Jeudy in the 102 side.
Absolutely. Next deal, CH 103, 205, and 305 for the 102 and the 107. So let's look at it right now. 103 and 102 in terms of value are probably around similar. So obviously I prefer the 102, but in terms of value, just kind of slightly. We'll say 103 and 305. 103 and 305 is 102. Yeah. You got CH in the 205 for the 107. I would take CH straight up over the 107. So
I would as well.
You made out like a robber there. So great deal there. The next deal, he received Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney, the 2 Bears, in exchange for Fitzpatrick, Mims, Jarwin in a 305. In a 2 tight end league, you fucking stole this deal, in my opinion. Because the Moon, as much
Cole
as I
like the most valuable asset in this deal.
And as much as I love Fitzpatrick, Mooney's probably the second most valuable.
Probably, yeah. So I would definitely agree that you probably won this. The only thing I would say about the CEH deal is you said your league undervalues quarterbacks. At that 107 pick, you might have been able to get Trey Lance or Justin Fields. So that would have been a little sketchy on that part. But I think you probably won all 3 of these trades. They're probably close in value, but I think I would take your side,
dude. And honestly, if we're talking it straight now, like if Justin Fields or Trey Lance ends up falling in the draft, they're at the 108, the 109, the 110. You could part the 205 and the 207 and just move up for one of them.
If somebody's willing to move down, you could even part some other of your pieces on your team currently as well and package it with the 205 and Henry Ruggs in the 207 or something like that. If you could move up with something like that and go and get a guy like Justin Fields at the 107 or Trey Lance at the 107, I would absolutely pull off a deal like that because your league is clearly undervaluing quarterbacks. And I think the best way to take advantage of that is not to also undervalue quarterbacks yourself. The best way to take advantage of that is to scoop up the value where you can.
Yep, absolutely. Do I pass and take a Trey Lance or look at Freiermuth at 205, 207? Also, thoughts on the trades I made? You killed them. I've taken 4th place the last 2 years in the 18 league. Are there any other moves I should make to make this team a contender? This is a type of team that I'll see what happens in the rookie draft. The 2 main needs, obviously, in my opinion, would be the quarterback 3 and the tight end 1/2 slot. If you get Kyle Pitts, that tight end.
If you make out of this draft with Kyle Pitts and Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, let's say you get all 3 of those guys with your picks, you are laughing and you are a contending team this year for sure.
And heck, even if Trey Lance or Justin Fields fall and you ended up with Kyle Pitts and one of those 2 quarterbacks as well, you also made out like a bandit. So
I would also say that 205 and 207, if those QBs aren't available, Pat Freiermuth and Hunter Long become attractive to me in a 2 tight end format, especially Freiermuth at that. If Freiermuth's there at that 207 and you come away with Pitts, Wilson, Freiermuth from this draft, that is phenomenal.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, any underlying thoughts, or should we get on to the next team? All right,
No,
perfect. We got Colin's team, so you guys can see it on the screen, and Corey's about to read it off.
Yeah, so Colin's team, it looks like he has a little bit less questions, so we appreciate that. If you guys want just one question answered, we're starting to get a lot more engagement on these episodes, so we're going to maybe try and start limiting some of the questions that people can ask because we want to cover as many teams as we can. But Colin's team, you can see it's a 12-team, one quarterback PPR league. In a one quarterback league, having Dak Prescott definitely helps. He's got Christian McCaffrey, Antonio Gibson, Kareem Hunt as his top running backs. Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore as his top receivers, Noah Fant as his top tight end. Doesn't look like he has his first this year, but he does have all of his picks in 2023 and 2/3 in 2023. He's basically asking, what would we try and do to upgrade? Is this a win now team? And he feels like he can use a better third running back and potentially an upgrade at tight end. Honestly, dude, in your situation, I think this is a win now team, and I think you could win the championship with this team as it is currently right now. You don't have a first round pick, so I don't know if you can necessarily go out and acquire a running back. I suppose you could package Kareem Hunt in your 2023 first and try and get like a really good running back. But I think at the point you're at, you should be able to win the championship with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. If not, you should be at a minimum a top 3 team in your league, and that's always going to get you into the mix. So I think you're doing a really good job here. I would agree. Maybe third running back, maybe tight. Actually, no, tight end. Like
you got Noah Fant, man. Like I don't think you're in bad shape at tight end. I know it's like when you. And I do this too. Everybody does this. When you have your starting roster, let's say you're looking at your sleeper lineup, you see your starting roster and you're like, oh, I got Noah Fant as my tight end and I have all these elite players at every other position. It looks like you have a weak tight end position, but relative to the rest of your league, you're probably in a top 6 position, top 8 position at tight end in your league. And I guarantee nobody has a 2-stack of running backs like you do. And Christian McCaffrey and Antonio Gibson. I guarantee there's maybe 1 or 2 other teams in your league that have a similar wide receiver core that you do. And you know, you have a top 5 quarterback in Dynasty as well.
Yep, absolutely. So, anything else you want to add to this team? But
no, you're good to go, Colin.
You're chilling. So we'll get on to Max, and you can read off the team here.
Yep. So Max's team, he didn't actually give me a scoring format right away. I might just look real quick to see if he did DM me again. No, he didn't actually give me a scoring format. So going over Max's team, we can see that he has, you know, a pretty solid starting lineup at the very least. The wide receiver position is definitely the biggest weakness of his team. Justin Herbert as his quarterback, Zeke Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, those guys are, you know, going to be studs for you. TJ Hawkinson's a great young tight end to have. He says he's kind of lost with this team right now, and I probably would agree with him. I don't think you have necessarily the team that is capable of winning a championship or anything like that. He says, is there any fixes he can make to contend this year, or is it in rebuild mode? Is it worth trading first and second round picks for star receivers? Because that's clearly the weakness of his team. And any other tips and trades that he should look at. So what are your thoughts right away looking at this team?
You know, I'm more of a pessimistic person when it comes to being fully objective with my team. I don't think this team can win this year.
One thing I will say before you get into that, he says he has all of his picks in 2021. So he hasn't had his rookie draft yet. So if he can, he didn't say where he's picking. Yeah, I don't know where he's picking. So I'm assuming, let's just assume it's a mid-round pick because we don't know, and it's kind of like a middling team. Let's just assume he picks 106 to 110 somewhere. If you can add a Devontae Smith to this team, that definitely helps your case. I still don't think you can contend, though. So I personally, the only guy I'm willing to shop, though, because I don't think this is like a complete tear it down, sell everybody. I think Zeke Elliott is the guy that you're looking to sell.
I think this is a team that I'm rebuilding and trying to make into a dynasty by 2023. I'm selling Jonathan Taylor. I'm selling Ezekiel Elliott. I'm selling Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm selling Cortland Sutton. I'm basically just looking for as much longevity as possible on this team. The only one main piece that I'd probably be looking to keep would be TJ Hawkinson, simply because people won't really pay up for tight ends. And I do think Hawkinson, with the youth, with the overall availability on that offense, should be a really good tight end for the foreseeable future. Aside from that, I mean, I got to be objective with myself, so I'm going to be objective with you. This is a team that I am going to be tearing down, rebuilding, 2022, 2023, acquiring as many picks, as many young assets as possible. And you're probably a playoff team this year, but by 2022, 2023, you'll firmly entrench yourself into that top 3 in your league. And that's what I'm looking for if I'm going to make a firm contending push. I'm not looking to just scrape into the playoffs. I'm looking to be dominant going into the playoffs.
Right. So. And I don't know, he didn't tell me if this was super flex or not either. And your quarterback situation is definitely suspect if this is a super flex league. So again, I think you have some premium assets. I don't know if I'd be selling everybody. To me, I personally would keep Justin Herbert, Jonathan Taylor, and TJ Hawkinson, sell the rest where I can. That's personally what I would do, because I think you can just retool this thing for 2022, 2023 without selling everybody and still be in a decent situation. Unless, if somebody's willing to give you a Godfather offer, like the one that Tim Brennan got for Jonathan Taylor, if you were able to get something like that, then I would absolutely sell him.
And yeah, like I'm not just selling freaking Jonathan Taylor for peanuts. I'm looking at a deal like that as the main basis of what I should expect. If somebody came at me right now, was offering me a mid-2021 first, a 2022 first, and a 2023 first for Jonathan Taylor, I'm taking it yesterday given your situation. If somebody's willing to offer me a young piece in a 2022 first for Ezekiel Elliott, I'm probably taking that as well. If somebody's willing to offer me a first somehow, if you're able to get a first or even like the 201, 202 this year for Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm taking that yesterday as well. So there are a ton of kind of versatile, flexible type of deals you can make with this team. But the underlying factor I'm looking at here is increasing that longevity and making this into a dominant franchise dynasty team by 2023.
Yeah, totally agree. So we could move on to Gleam Tweeter. We just have one more after Gleam, and then we'll be getting out of here. We'll try and keep this one under an hour. And this one shouldn't take us very long because this guy's team is loaded in a super flex 6 point per passing touchdown. So we got very high value quarterbacks, right? Especially good quarterbacks. He has Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray as his top 2 QBs. And in a 6 point per passing touchdown, rushing takes a little bit of a downtick because you're getting more for passing volume, but those guys are phenomenal to have. It's a tiered PPR league. You got half PPR for running backs, wide receivers full PPR, tight end premium 1.5 PPR, and then you also get 0.5 per rush and receiving first downs. So a very, complex scoring situation, but your top 5 running backs, man, Cam Akers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joe Mixon, Travis Etienne, Michael Carter. Wide receivers, you're Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, Deontay Johnson, Robert Woods, Rashad Bateman, and Terrace Marshall all the way down there as well. Noah Fant, Cole Kmet. He asks, this is a end of season 2 rebuild. Basically, he rebuilt this team, built it up to this point. He said he's never had a good team in this league. Well, congratulations. You got a good team now. After botching the startup, he said, I know his team is low. He said, I know my team is loaded with plenty of youth. What trades, moves should I be making, if any, or should I just stand pat? He says, note picks only tradable 1 year in advance. He can't acquire 2023 picks. And the draft capital that he has 2 first round picks next year, and neither of them are his. He said they're both teams that are in rebuild. So they're going to be high picks.
Yeah, like you well done. That's all I can really say here. This is the definition of productive struggle, and you're able to make it like a bandit because of it. I mean, this team is just phenomenal, and you should be able to contend this year. You should be able to create a dynasty by next year. That's the way I view this team.
Yeah, and the one thing I would suggest, the only thing that I see is Mixon, right? Because Mixon's a little out of place on this roster just because the whole team is young. Everybody's like an ascending player. And if you can get a Godfather offer for Joe Mixon, you can swap out Joe Mixon straight up for a guy like Antonio Gibson or something like that. I would absolutely do that yesterday. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. If you can, what?
If you're somehow able to get Eckler, people are down on Eckler.
Yeah, that would be fine as well. So if you're able to move Mixon, then this team is even more so increasing longevity. But even if you keep Mixon, you're going to be able to compete this year. And I still think Mixon's going to be valuable for another year or 2 after this. So yeah, you're in a great situation to compete, to contend going forward. You made out like a bandit, and your league's going to be really mad at you for a couple of years.
The other thing I will say is in a 1.5 PPR or 1.5 tight end premium is, again, it's a tiered PPR. He also gets a 0.5 for a rusher receiving first down. Maybe you're able to somehow fathom and upgrade Fant to like or if you're able to get like a Kyle Pitts for like Fant and Robert Woods, I would do that. Fant and even like Fant and Deontay. If somebody took
would
that,
would you go Fant in one of your first next year for Kittle?
If they're both projected early, I'd have a hard time giving them.
I would too, but like at the same time, like you have a huge advantage at every position. It is a 1.5 tight end premium, and George Kittle, or even if you wanted to go after Kyle Pitts and get something in return, maybe also
Fant Carter in that second for Pitts.
Yeah, if you could pull off something like that, I would absolutely do that. Even if you could, honestly, dude, if you could take Fant and Mixon and get Kittle, would you do that?
I'd probably
not. Probably not. Maybe you need something back in return, but I think I would consider something like that.
What about Fant and Sutton?
I don't think anybody's going to do that. That's my only thing.
Okay, fair. All right, it moves like that. Heck, like you're in a good spot regardless. When
Yeah,
we're talking
honestly,
about
if you did
slightly
nothing,
upgrading your
you're
tight end.
still fine. You're still fine if you do nothing. So let's just tie a bow on this team, and we'll get into Christian's team, and then we'll get out of here.
Final team of the video, and yeah, you guys can see it. It's a 1 quarterback, half PPR, 12 team league. You can read out the roster, Corey.
Yeah, so in a 1 quarterback league, I mean, Fitzmagic and Zach Wilson aren't an ideal quarterback situation, but it is a 1 quarterback league. It's not a super flex. You can get by with Fitzmagic until Zach Wilson's ready to be in your lineup. At running back, you got Gibson, CEH, and ETN as your top 3 guys. That's definitely ideal there. You got Michael Thomas, Scary Terry, and Mike Evans as your top 3 receivers. Again, pretty solid there. Tight end wise, you could use a little bit better of options, but draft capital, you got 3 1s next year, and you got it looks like your first in 2023, and then some other picks as well. His question is his team strong enough to compete this year? And if not, what moves would we pursue? He also gives us a number of trades that we can just go rapid fire which side that we would take. He traded CMC, Cortland Sutton, and Devontae Smith for Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, Travis Etienne, and a 2022 second. I think we both agree, and we've already talked about this pre-show.
Yeah.
I think we both agree that we would take the Christian McCaffrey side.
Yeah, I think undersold on C-Mac here. As much as I say it's good to get peak value for these players at the top of your draft. You're talking about a guy in CMC in a 1 quarterback league is the undisputed 101. This isn't enough for him. I'll be completely honest. I'd probably need Diggs, McLaurin, and ETN straight up for him, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a unicorn fantasy asset. He's a guy that when he's in the lineup, he is unparalleled workload to any other running back, maybe in NFL history. Like not even just in fantasy recently. Like this guy is legitimately getting the highest value touches in every single game. And his offense isn't even good, and he's still that value. If Sam Darnold turns into Tannehill, like what Tannehill has become, then we could be talking about a guy that goes absolutely nuclear this year.
We could be talking about the next LaDainian Tomlinson in terms of comparative.
I think he's already there. That's the thing. We could be talking about the best fantasy running back season of all time.
Ever. Yeah. I mean, he's already
did that.
He's already had, literally the second best season of all time. And that was only because LaDainian Tomlinson had 28 touchdowns.
Yeah.
30. I think he had 31 touchdowns from scrimmage.
31.
Yeah. 28 rushing touchdowns, 31 from scrimmage. Like if Sam Darnold is the quarterback that his talent, maybe he lives up to it, maybe he becomes the next Ryan Tannehill, and this offense is averaging 25, 26 points per game, and Christian McCaffrey is still leading the league as always in opportunities in the red zone, we could be talking about legitimately a guy who's nearing that 20 to 25 touchdown area on top of a guy who's already getting 100 plus receptions per year. So Christian McCaffrey,
he's hard to give up, man. Yeah. I have him on a rebuilding team right now, and I'm not selling him until the season starts because I think people are going to remember real fast how valuable this dude is, and I'm going to get a Godfather offer for him. Anyway, another trade that he gets into, he traded away Stephon Diggs, who he acquired in the previous trade. He traded him away for Jalen Waddle, a first next year, a second round pick in 2022, and a first in 2023. And this deal, I really like this deal for sure.
The value that you lost giving up McCaffrey, you just made it back for easily here. Like I would probably say Diggs' value would probably be that package minus the 2023 first. Honestly, if I had Diggs and someone offered me Waddle, a 2023 first and second, I would probably view that as appropriate value for Diggs. The fact that you also got a 2023 first, which should be a very good class, on top of that, great deal there for you. You traded the next deal.
This trade makes no sense to me, and I think I don't know how you did this. Nobody on the internet loves Cam Akers more than me. Like I'm not kidding when I say this. There is nobody that is higher on Cam Akers than me. You traded Akers not only straight up for Saquon Barkley, you somehow got him to throw it at 2023 fourth. I don't know how that happened.
Let's just go over the negotiations real quick. So the guy probably, he sent you an offer right up. Like you have Akers, he sent you a Barkley straight up. What'd you do? Did you just say, I might need a little piece on top? Can you throw in that 2023? Like, how did those negotiations happen?
Yeah, so to me, like, I'll give me the Barkley side all day. I love Cam Akers, but I would not trade him for Saquon Barkley.
Like, what would be fair value in this? Like Akers in a second for Barkley?
I probably need Akers in a first for Barkley, man. Like, I value Barkley that highly. I think he is, he's the clear 102 in a 1 quarterback format for me. I know some people have question marks about him, but again, once the season gets here, man, I think people are going to remember real fast who Saquon Barkley is.
That's fair, yeah. And Barkley and Gibson, Barkley for Gibson and Mike Evans. I probably would have just kept Barkley as much as I love Antonio Gibson here, personally. I love Mike Evans too, first of all. I mean, we're talking about a guy who should be a top 15 wide receiver this year at minimum. I just think, again, like you mentioned, Barkley's a unicorn. And could Gibson end up being that? Absolutely. If that's the case, like I still think that you have a decent shot at returning value on this deal. Absolutely. But like if Barkley
there's a world where Barkley outscores both of those guys combined on a points per game basis this year. Like that is legitimately possible for Saquon Barkley. That's what we're talking about with him. And as much as I love Gibson, I don't think he's the talent that Barkley ever is. And honestly, like I don't think I would make this trade. The only thing that I think that you did do well in this trade is after Scary Terry, your wide receiver 3 was Rondell Moore or Laviska Shenault. So the fact that you secure Mike Evans as a solid wide receiver 3 for you, and who I think has borderline wide receiver 1 value, that's a great trade from that perspective. But I think splitting the lead asset into the 2 great assets in this deal, I probably would have just kept Saquon Barkley.
Yep, absolutely. And the final deal, he traded Waddle in a second for Rondale Moore in a first. It's probably a round fair deal, but let's just look at your team again real quick. I think Waddle would probably help you out a lot more this year, but again, I'm not going to pick and choose here. I'm assuming the first and the second are from the same team. We're probably looking at about a 12 pick, or is it a 10 team or a 12 team? It's a 12 team. We're looking at
12 team, yeah.
Assuming they're from the same team, we're looking at a 12 pick discrepancy. And if you're actually looking at current rookie draft ADP, that's a lot more of a discrepancy than where Waddle and Rondale are currently going between drafts. I mean, we're talking about Waddle's probably about the 111, 112 range. Rondale Moore's usually an early second. So if we're talking straight value, you probably won this deal. It's just given your situation, it would be kind of hard because I do think Waddle's going to have a more productive rookie year than Rondale Moore. But as you know me, I'm always trying to capitalize on value. This is a pretty good value intake if you're going to sell Waddle in this type of deal.
Yeah. And the one thing he says, what moves would you guys pursue? The one thing I would do is try and get a more solidified tight end. That is the only real trade that I think you need to make. You have 3 1s next year. I don't know if I'm just necessarily willing to sell them because they're going to have less value now than they will at the rookie draft. You could always go into this season with the team that you have. And then mid-season, if a contender has Mark Andrews or something and they're trying to sell him, then you could go after a guy like that. Or you could go after a guy like TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts, something of that nature. If Kyle Pitts is having a down rookie season, maybe you flip a first for him and the owner is willing to part with him and sell low on him. So
in a 1 quarterback league, it might have to be all 3.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to do that, but I would just keep finding ways to upgrade your tight end position. Aside from that, though, you're in pretty good shape. I think you can borderline compete this year. I think you're going to be a playoff team. I don't necessarily think you're going to win the championship outright, but in 2022, your team should really come into its form once Zach Wilson has a full rookie season under his belt. I'd imagine the Jets are going to go give him a number 1 receiver, a number 1 tight end, or more offensive line pieces next offseason. So he should be in a really great situation. Your running back, Travis Etienne, is just a guy that I'm not touching this year in redraft, but by 2022, he should be in a great spot.
Hey, you mentioned Zach Wilson might have a number 1 wide receiver by then, but he's already got his number 1 wide receiver.
Yes, but he might have another wide receiver and, he might have another stud tight end or something like that.
Yeah, dude, when they trade for DeAndre Hopkins to come in and be their wide receiver too, that would be pretty nice.
Yeah, behind Elijah Moore. So yeah, overall, Christian, you did good on this one. I think you still got some work to do, but you're in a good spot overall.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, good play, good trades, good overall team. And if you guys enjoyed it and made it this far in Dynasty's decision so far, comment down below 2023 contender, because I don't know how many times I say that every freaking video, but my default is, oh, you're not ready to win now? Okay, you make this team a contender by 2023. So if you made it this far, 2023 contender down below. We will see you guys next week for a jam-packed content week. We're ready to get you guys rolling and keep that consistent schedule as always. So peace out, y'all.